Welcome to the Prophecy Club. And what I'm about to say might not sound exactly right on a nationwide radio program, but I mean it sincerely from the bottom of my heart. And that is, I want to say to every one of you out there listening, and especially our supporters and especially our Fast Track team too, I want to say I love you. And the reason I say that is because I think this past weekend, listening to Brian Melvin, I think hearing about heaven, hearing about hell, I think it drew me closer to the Lord. I think it painted an even closer picture in my mind of what our life together in heaven is going to look like and what kind of life we need to be living here on earth in order to be there, and to be there with the best blessing, which I guess is kind of a roundabout way saying I really recommend that you get that hell offer. That's what we're calling it, the hell offer at prophecyclub.com. But the point that I want to say is I want to say that I love you guys. Anyway, on to what we're talking about today. Here's the plan. I'm going to be playing a few broadcasts out of these 4 DVDs that I really think you need to get. First is How Illegal Immigration is Destroying America. True, sometimes older DVDs are not as relevant. However, these don't fall into that category. Matter of fact, they're probably more relevant today than they were when, for example, 3 of the 4 made back in 2005. First one is How Illegal Immigration is Destroying America. This is by Major James Linzey, retired U.S. Army officer and chaplain. And in 2005, we weren't that concerned with illegal immigration and how it was destroying America, but boy, we are today, and he hits it. Now, next thing is this How World Bankers Are Destroying America, and I have to say, from what I hear coming from Linzey and the elite, this is extremely relevant and very important that you get it, because he helps you understand, literally, these international bankers are setting us all up. We are all in a funnel, and that funnel is getting smaller and smaller, and it's all heading toward world government, mark of the beast, and the Antichrist. That's where it's really going. Third one is Secrets of the Illuminati by Dr. Stan Monteith. This is talking about things like Rhodes Scholar, Jesuit, Lucius Trust, Mason, Skull and Bones, Rosicrucians, Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, Bilderbergers, expert on it for years. Then planned population reduction. Can you believe that they are doing many things in our nation, especially around the world, to actually kill people? That's their goal. See, if Satan can get them in the grave, well, the sooner the better, especially if he can get them there before they accept Jesus. That's to his advantage. So he's talking about things like what's wrong with cell phones, diet drinks, soy products, mercury, preservatives, MTB, Splenda, and all sorts of things. All 4 DVDs, valued at $120, available today for a gift of just $40. It's the immigration gift offer at prophecyclub.com. Now let's go on over and listen to the audio of the DVD, How World Bankers Are Destroying America.
The government did in that banking crisis. They turned Federal Reserve notes into fiat money, at least in respect to gold coins. These steps would substitute the taxpayer as ultimate guarantors of the fiat money instead of the banks and the banks' shareholders, all those banks that I listed off. And in return for this action, the banks would have to agree to do 2 things. One, they would agree to monetize the public debt, that is to buy government securities for duly created fiat money, enabling the government to use fiat money as an instrument of taxation. And 2, they would agree to cooperate in some type of cartel or self-regulatory scheme to control the expansion of the supply of this fiat money within limits that maintain public confidence. In other words, the government and the banks agree to divide the amount that can be looted from the general public by manipulation of the money supply. They would agree to do so that the system would not collapse and public would not see that they are the ones paying the bills. Let's talk more about the fractional reserve banking system. Those agreements explain the fractional reserve banking scheme. It's a conspiracy between the Federal Reserve banks and political officials, public officials that you vote for, to take money from the American people. The Federal Reserve is simply a very elaborate and complicated device that's been set up to accomplish these ends in a very highly deceptive way. The Federal Reserve System was begun in response to the collapse of fractional banking at the local level by the bankers and the political cronies who are now doing this at the national level to regulate it all. Actual real fiat money came into existence in this country in 1968. We had a repudiation of the promise to pay in gold in 1933, and we had the repudiation to pay in silver in 1967 and 1968. And so it was not until 1968, June, that we really had a true fiat currency for the first time in the Federal Reserve note. Since then, we have seen a geometrically accelerating breakdown in the monetary and banking systems in America. So what? What are the results? Today we suffer under a regime of fiat currency and unlimited fractional reserve banking. The Federal Reserve plays a vital but simple role. The public confidence in the monetary banking system weakens because of the effect of the overexpansion of the fiat money. Fiat money follows the same path: expansion, expansion, expansion. And the wonderful Federal Reserve Corporation steps in to restore confidence. Isn't that nice? By what they call fighting inflation. They're going to fight for you. But they never fight inflation so drastically that they precipitate a genuine economic collapse or endanger the interests of the banking cartel, its satellite industries, or the political cronies. There is a problem. Any system of fractional reserve banking suffers from inherent instability that only increases over time. You see, my friends, it's a pyramid scheme. They don't want Americans involved in pyramid schemes because we might make money. But by God, they're going to do it. And you don't know it. Consequently, we can expect that the remaining lifetime of the Federal Reserve confidence game is relatively short-lived. The Federal Reserve System is not simply a control mechanism for the national banking cartel. It is one of the most important mechanisms in a pervasive system of economic regulations that's ever existed in the history of the United States, or that the world has even seen. And this explains the political independence of the Federal Reserve System. If an administrative state is to regulate the economy with relative autonomy from the electoral public and most special interest groups, then the monetary agency must claim political independence. The political independence of the Federal Reserve System is precisely what one would expect it to claim when it's part of an anti-democratic mechanism for economic and political control. The fact that no constitutional branch of the national government, not the Congress, not the judiciary, not the president, ever disputes the Federal Reserve System's supposed independence shows the truth of the claim. Let's talk about communism, the results of monetary fraud. Contemporary political money and the banking system that generates it has 5 major consequences. Number 1, political money is the prime means by which the government operates a system of hidden taxation through the increases in the supply of money, the inflation mechanism. Inflation of the money supply is a hidden form of taxation. And one of the ways in which the government can redistribute real wealth from citizens to the state is by changing the amount of money in circulation. Number 2, by operating a system of hidden taxation, modern political money allows the ruling elite of the country to redistribute the nation's wealth from one group to another. The American Institute for Economic Research, Great Barrington, Massachusetts, they put out a paper every year describing the amount of money that's been redistributed since World War II. And the last one shows and documents that $6 trillion has been redistributed since World War II from the people to the ruling elite. A tremendous loss of wealth since World War II due to the Federal Reserve Corporation, a private company. 3, by functioning as a mechanism for redistributing wealth, modern political money systematically corrupts the electoral process because it enables politicians to buy votes with government spending programs, made only possible by the banking system's ability to monetize the public debt. By tying the banks to the public debt, modern political money licenses the banks to loot the public treasury, first by guaranteeing the Federal Reserve notes as obligations of the United States, calling them legal tender, and second, by providing bailouts to the bankers through FSLIC, RTC, FDIC, or whatever, when the inherent fraudulent fractional reserve banking scheme collapses. We can see it happening, hundreds of millions of dollars for the recent savings and loan bailout. How much for the coming commercial banks bailout? Insurance companies, pension funds. It all eventually will have to be bailed out. And 5, modern political money and banking function as a key mechanism in the scheme of economic planning that misdirects and wastes resources and thereby deliberately is designed to lower the standard of living of most Americans. We see communism collapsing in Eastern Europe, the former Soviet Union, other parts of the world, but we have still got it here. How to take action? What can we do about it? A reform of the Federal Reserve by institutional changes or by the possibility of going to a supranational banking cartel or world banking system, a new world order banking system is ahead. These steps for change can be documented historically based on early instances of American constitutional and statutory law. We must follow these steps to bring the United States monetary system back into conformance with constitutional law. First, we have to declare unconstitutional the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, the seizure of gold coin in 1933, and the outlawing in 1934 of private contracts calling for payment in gold or silver. See, we have to condemn the basic steps that were taken by the government in undoing our money system and establishing, ultimately, the fiat currency system.
We'll be right back after this message. Okay, I have some good news. We're going to extend the archaeology gift offer for one more week. Here's what you get. It's actually 4 discs. You're going to get the 1991 video that I shot when Leslie and I visited Noah's Ark, the crossing side of the Red Sea, all kinds of amazing things on that 2-week tour with Ron Wyatt. That's called Archaeology Confirms the Bible. Then I made one back in 2012 called Noah's Ark Confirms the Bible, and this is explaining a lot of the things that was actually on the first DVD. Then we had Michael Root in to make 2 amazing DVDs. First one called End Times Archaeology, second one called Dead Sea Scrolls. 4 discs, 4 titles, and is normally valued at $80, but we're making it available right now for a gift of just $40. We're going to extend it one more week. It's called the Archaeology Gift Offer at prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112. Archaeology Gift Offer, prophecyclub.com, 785-266-1112. Last week, get it now. Brian Melvin did an excellent job making this DVD called Hell in a Box and From Hell to Heaven. Excellent talk. I've heard about 30 some odd talks of people that have passed on, some to heaven, some to hell. This is one of the best ones. This held my attention all the way through. Now look, just as archaeology can be really powerful to win people to Christ, and you need that. You need this DVD in your hands to show people this will convince people. I'm saying this will convince the skeptic to get saved very powerfully. You want this DVD and this book, Hell in a Box and Hell to Heaven, and the book, A Land Unknown, Hell's Dominion. DVD gift of 30, book gift of 20, both for a gift of 45, prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112. The Hell Gift Offer. Keep them out of it with the Hell Gift Offer. prophecyclub.com, 785-266-1112. And now, back to the program.
See, we have to condemn the basic steps that were taken by the government in undoing our money system and establishing, ultimately, the fiat currency system. Second, we have to disestablish the Federal Reserve System and privatize the few politically legitimate and economically useful functions that it has, such as a national clearinghouse, for example, whose functions would be legitimate and useful for private banks. Third, we have to definitely terminate the status of Federal Reserve notes as obligations of the United States and as legal tender for all debts. There is no constitutional justification for the American taxpayer to be the ultimate guarantor for the investment schemes of the banks, the savings and loans, and the Federal Reserve. Fourth, we have to dedicate to the restoration of the constitutional money system the gold that was unconstitutionally seized from the American people in 1933. Most of the gold that's been held at Fort Knox and West Point, if it's still there, is what is called the coin melt gold. It is the 90% pure gold that was melted down from gold coins that were seized during the 1933 seizure. You see, the American government was involved in receiving stolen goods at the time, and it must be returned to those from whom it was taken. The sole purpose is for the restoration of our constitutional money system. We must revalue in terms of constitutional dollars all other outstanding contracts that are now payable in Federal Reserve notes. The contracts must have some real value attached to them. The real value would be their value in constitutional dollars. We must begin the free coinage of gold and silver coins, not the limited coinage done now, the American Eagle coins, for example, but coining as much gold and silver as the American people will allow to be brought into the mints. We have to adopt all the silver and gold in the world as money of the United States. What Congress did by monetizing all the gold and silver in the world instantly. Those people who talk about there not being enough gold in circulation don't know what they're talking about. It's not in circulation, and it's not treated as money because of ignorance. People will bring it out of the coffers all over the world once we start calling gold and silver money. And we must regulate the value of all those coins and prohibit the practice of fractional reserve banking schemes. This is not a visionary program. It will be very difficult politically to put this into effect, but it is not visionary because this has happened twice in American history before. It happened at the end of the War of Independence when we had the same kind of rotting vegetable currency, continental currency, the same bills of credit. There was no gold or silver in circulation at the time. The economy was prostrate. All of these steps were taken, and there was an economic recovery. Second, it happened in the South following the Civil War. The Confederate currency was destroyed. The country was in economic trouble, and we were under military occupation when these steps were taken. And they were taken in the North as well, the entire country. The currency was turned back to redeemable fiduciary currency, and there was an economic recovery. It can be done again. The only question is, do the American people have the gumption to make it happen? Not, when will the politicians make it happen? I am afraid that the politicians are bought and that the vast majority are puppets of world bankers. The world bankers being on the Federal Reserve Corporation Board of Directors. This is not an American corporation, as you've seen when I listed off the member banks. We have to make it happen. And I believe in the American people. I believe that if enough Americans are informed about these issues that I'm discussing tonight, then there will be a big enough grassroots movement that will demand media attention. Let's talk about politicians' lies. You didn't know they lied, did you? You believed in them 100% because American blood runs through their veins and they say they're Christians. So we believe in them automatically. We believe they are Jesus Christ's emissaries and they are here to do nothing but good, right? Let's talk about Congress and our money. In an interview regarding income tax and government fraud with Susan B. Anthony, John E. Tremaine stated, in 1933, we now know that our government was bankrupted, and whatever gold was in the U.S. Treasury was handed over to the Federal Reserve Corporation, which is not a federal government agency. Roosevelt declared a national emergency, and the banks closed for 3 days. Let's talk about liens. Congress can extract only so much money out of our economy. If private owners become bankrupt, then the bankers will come to own all the private assets throughout America. By encouraging Congress to spend money it does not have, the government forces Congress to turn around and put liens on American labor and American private property. That's why they spend money they do not have. They do not spend money because they care about programs for you. The programs aren't for you anyway. They are simply tools to bankrupt the middle class. If you want to see the future of America, look at Mexico. They did the same dastardly thing to Mexico as they're doing to the United States now. Brussels, Belgium is the center of the hub of the banking syndicate, and that hub is, of course, loaning large sums of money to governments all over the world and to the Congress of the United States. It's like this. The more collateral I have, the more I can borrow from banks and the more I can secure. Governments are securing their international debt by putting liens on the persons and property of their citizens. Think of it very simply like this. A person goes to the department store and says to the clerk, I want that refrigerator, deliver it to me tomorrow, and send Willie Brown the bill. Next day, Willie Brown gets the bill and says, what's this? I didn't order this. Well, you see, the person who ordered the refrigerator is the federal government. The department store is the Federal Reserve Corporation, and the American people is Willie Brown. We don't order these goods, and they're not used for our purpose, but we pay the tab. The fraud is that Congress bankrupted the U.S. Treasury and turned all their gold over to the Federal Reserve banks, which are not federal agencies. The Federal Reserve is a municipal corporation created by an act of Congress, but it is still a corporation. And all that gold is now in their hands. Let's talk about manipulation. We have a manipulated economy. The Federal Reserve manipulates the economy to cause inflation by controlling the money supply and interest rates. Inflation puts a tremendous pressure on the middle class to turn all their assets over to the banks to finance food, clothing, electricity, water, the basics of life. You see, in the eyes of the Federal Reserve Corporation, the bankers and their political cronies, the American people are groundhogs paying ground rent for subsistence. The Federal Reserve is a very demonic organization, and it is no wonder that land has gotten to be so expensive. It is no wonder that labor has gotten to be so expensive, while they transfer a great deal of wealth out of the hands of the middle class and into the hands of the ruling elite. It is systematically designed to do that. It is not happening by coincidence. The report of the Peter Grace Commission documented in writing with proof that the individual income tax revenues that are collected and extracted by the IRS are not going to pay for government services. They're going to pay for interest on the national debt, and they're going to pay for transfer payments to the people on the receiving end of Social Security payments. Money's being taken out of the economy and transferred elsewhere, either into Social Security beneficiaries or into the private stockholders of the Federal Reserve Corporation. How much interest are the American people paying on $5 to $6 trillion, which the national debt is approaching? They admit that it's approaching $6 trillion, but it's more likely to be around $18 trillion. And this is besides the $26 trillion that Americans owe on credit cards, car loans, mortgages, and those kind of things. But people are paying $400 billion annually to discharge interest alone on the national debt that they have accrued. And that does not do anything to the principal, while the government year after year enlarges that principal. Congress was responsible for passing the Federal Reserve Act in the first place, and their allowing it to remain on the books will bankrupt the assets of all the private Americans. We have to do something about it. What can we do? When Anthony asked Tremaine what the ordinary citizen who is fed up with his money being squandered can do, Tremaine answered this way. First, we have to take steps to eliminate the ignorance because the law is in place. The law is there to defend our rights. The purpose of the Constitution is above all to protect individual rights. If the American people want to fight this thing, we can do it. First, by understanding the law and then pointing out to people in government that they are violating the law by forcefully extracting what is a voluntary system of taxation. Congress is chained to the Constitution, and they are chained to Thomas Jefferson's words. And he said that they cannot forcefully extract what is a voluntary system of taxation. They cannot go out and forcibly extract our voluntary participation in their third-party debt scheme and do so lawfully. How does it work? Well, Trumaine said, the Congress can always turn to the Federal Reserve System to bail out their deficit. If the deficit happens to skyrocket because Americans didn't send in enough taxes, Congress can always turn to the Federal Reserve System, as they've been doing all along, to borrow more money into circulation. And they turn around and they try to extract that much more in interest from the American taxpayer. It does not put the American government in economic distress. It puts the American people in economic distress. The system has a built-in safety valve. Congress can turn around and borrow more Federal Reserve notes by creating bonds. Well, how does that work? Congress takes in X amount of dollars every year through income taxes, excise taxes, and corporate taxes. But there's always a shortfall because they like to spend $300 billion a year or $400 billion a year, whether we like it or not. They simply like to do it because they have greedy guts. So there's always a shortfall. It's more than what they take in. So they get printing presses. They put ink on paper. They call them bonds. And they float those bonds on the market. And they hope that Americans will buy them up. Some Americans have enough money to buy bonds issued by the Treasury.
I'm going to interrupt right there, but I'm going to encourage you to get these 4 DVDs valued at $120 for a gift of just $40. I'm going to give you one line per DVD explaining it. How illegal immigration is destroying America. He exposes how satanic forces in the U.S. government are actually allowing illegal immigration, giving access to terrorists to invade America, and a lot more. How world bankers are destroying America by forming a global bank to control all kinds of things. Of course, we know eventually go to the mark of the beast, talking a lot about the Federal Reserve. Then Secrets of the Illuminati, Dr. Stan Monteith, radio program he did for 5 hours every day for years, 37 years. He talks about things like Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, Bilderbergers, and a lot more. Planned population reduction. What's wrong with things like DDT, created diseases, milk additives, processes, MTBE, Splenda, and that's just scratching the surface. 4 DVDs valued at $120 for a gift of $40 at prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112. It's the immigration gift offer. This week, 785-266-1112 or prophecyclub.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your gifts of support. That's what really keeps us going. Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. Okay, I have some good news. We're going to extend the archaeology gift offer for one more week. Here's what you get. It's actually 4 discs. You're going to get the 1991 video that I shot when Leslie and I visited Noah's Ark, the crossing side of the Red Sea, all kinds of amazing things on that 2-week tour with Ron Wyatt. That's called Archaeology Confirms the Bible. Then I made one back in 2012 called Noah's Ark Confirms the Bible, and this is explaining a lot of the things that was actually on the first DVD. Then we had Michael Root in to make 2 amazing DVDs. First one called End Times Archaeology. Second one called Dead Sea Scrolls. 4 discs, 4 titles, and is normally valued at $80, but we're making it available right now for a gift of just $40. We're going to extend it one more week. It's called the Archaeology Gift Offer at prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112. Archaeology Gift Offer, prophecyclub.com, 785-266-1112. Last week, get it now.